The alien princess didn't request, she demanded, "Embrace me, human." The hall was built for silence. It floated above the blue curve of Velar Prime, a ring of crystal and soft light where sound carried too easily and mistakes carried forever. Every species of the conquered knew this place. It was where words became law and first impressions became history. Humans had been warned. Do not speak unless spoken to. Commander Elias Rowe stood among the human delegation, hands calmly folded, breathing slow and even. He wore no medals, no sharp colors, nothing meant to impress. That was on purpose. Humanity had learned early that the galaxy did not trust confidence, it feared it. Elias was not the strongest person in the room. He was not the smartest either. He had been chosen because he listened well, because he noticed pauses in speech and shifts in posture. He had once spent 3 hours in silence with a grieving alien envoy and called it the most important work of his career. The Velari entered without announcement. They moved like flowing glass, tall and luminous, their skin faintly reflecting the colors of the hall. At their center walked Princess Salith, heir to the Velari conquered seat. Her presence pressed against the room like gravity. Conversations stopped. Translators activated automatically, though no one spoke yet. She did not sit. Her eyes, large, faceted, and painfully bright, swept across the gathered species. When she spoke, her voice was calm, clear, and absolute. "I will not begin negotiations." The words echoed, perfectly translated, perfectly flat. The Velari elders shifted. Several non-Velari delegates stiffened. This was not the script. "I will first make a demand." Murmurs spread, quickly silenced by protocol. Elias felt the tension ripple like heat. Princess Salith turned her gaze toward the human delegation, not humanity as a whole. Not their flag, not their technology, him. "Embrace me," she said. "Human." The hall froze. Human advisors surged into silent panic. Medical warnings flashed in Elias' peripheral display. Velari biology was sensitive to touch. Improper contact could cause shock, emotional overload, or cultural offense severe enough to collapse talks permanently. Elias did not move. He met her eyes. The princess did not blink. "This is not a request," she continued. "It is a demand recognized under Conquered Right 7. An elder Velari stepped forward, voice trembling. "Your Highness, this is unprecedented." "Yes," Salith replied, "so is our failure." The words cut deeper than any raised voice. The Conquered had been unraveling for years, trust eroded, alliances weakened. Species withdrew behind old fears. Everyone knew it. No one had expected her to say it out loud. The presiding arbiter, a being of layered light and sound, turned slowly toward the humans. "Do you accept this right?" Every human in the room felt the weight of the moment. Refusal could end humanity's place in the conquered. Acceptance could risk Elias' life, or worse, spark consequences no one understood. Elias spoke before anyone could stop him. "I will," he said. His voice was steady, simple, human. A sharp intake of breath moved through the hall. The human ambassador whispered urgently, "Commander." Elias lifted one hand slightly, a small human gesture asking for patience. He stepped forward alone. He did not rush. He did not bow too deeply. He walked the space between them as if it mattered because it did. Princess Salith watched him closely now, not like a ruler watching a subject, but like someone measuring a bridge before stepping onto it. "Do you understand what you offer?" she asked. "I understand that you wouldn't ask if it didn't matter," Elias replied. A pause. That pause changed everything. The Velari had studied humans for decades, their wars, their machines, their art. But pauses were harder to measure. Silence meant something different to humans. It was not emptiness, it was space. "Proceed," Salith said quietly. Elias stopped an arm's length away. He did not reach out immediately. "I'm going to step closer," he said gently for her translators and for her. "If at any moment you want me to stop, I will." Somewhere in the hall, a Velari elder made a distressed sound. This was not dominance. This was not submission. This was something else. Salith's glow flickered. "No one has ever said that," she said. Elias stepped forward. He moved slowly, carefully, the way humans approached frightened animals or grieving friends. When he raised his arms, he did not pull her in. He waited for permission. The princess hesitated. The galaxy held its breath, then she stepped forward herself. The contact was gentle, careful. Elias wrapped his arms loosely, not enclosing, not controlling. He focused on his breathing, steady and calm. He had done this before with people breaking under pressure, with children lost in fear, with strangers who needed to remember they were not alone. Salith stiffened at first. Her light flared sharply. Several systems in the hall spiked. Emotional resonance alarms triggered and then failed to categorize what they were sensing. And then slowly she relaxed. The Velari had expected intensity, overwhelm, submission, or collapse. What they felt instead was balance. Elias did not push emotion into her. He did not pull anything out. He simply stayed, present, unmoving, human. Salith's voice came soft and unsteady, close to his shoulder. "How are you doing this?" "I'm not doing anything," Elias said quietly. "I'm just here." Something ancient shifted. The Velari were a species of extremes. Their bonds were total or non-existent. Their trust was absolute or denied. They had built an empire on certainty and were now breaking under its weight. Humans were different. Humans lived in the middle. They carried doubt and hope at the same time. They loved knowing things would end. They held each other not to own, but to share the moment. Salith felt it all. Tears, actual tears, formed along the glowing lines of her face. The sight stunned the Velari court. Royal emotion was not displayed, ever. "I demanded this because I was afraid," she whispered. "Afraid we have forgotten how to connect." Elias did not answer right away. Then simply, "A lot of us are afraid of that," he said. The embrace lasted only seconds longer. Elias released first, stepping back carefully, hands open to show there was no trick, no claim. Salith remained still, light pulsing softly. The silence afterward was different from before. It was full. The princess turned to the hall. "Negotiations may begin," she said. But nothing was the same anymore. Across the conquered, observers replayed the moment again and again. Not the demand, not the shock, the pause, the way the human waited. For the first time, the galaxy began to wonder if humanity's greatest strength was not survival, or invention, or stubbornness, but the quiet courage to stand close without trying to win. And somewhere deep within Velari history, something long dormant had awakened. Not conquest. Not surrender, trust. The consequences had only just begun. The hall did not return to normal after the embrace. It only pretended to. Delegates sat in their places, translators hummed softly, and the presiding arbiter called the session to order, but something unseen had shifted. The air felt thinner, as if a window had been opened in a room that had been closed for too long. Commander Elias Rowe returned to the human section and stood quietly. His hands trembled just a little now that it was over. He hid that by folding them behind his back. He was human, not heroic. What he had done had not felt brave in the moment. It had felt necessary. Princess Salith did not sit on her throne. Instead, she chose a lower seat, closer to the center table. That alone sent a wave of confusion through the Velari court. Rank was distance. Authority was elevation. She had broken both without explanation. Negotiations began, trade routes, resource sharing, scientific exchange. The same words that had been spoken 100 times before, but the responses were different. Where the Velari once spoke in fixed declarations, they now paused. Sometimes they corrected themselves. Sometimes they asked questions. No one missed it. Elias watched quietly. He was not asked to speak again, and he was grateful for that. His role, for now, was finished. Or so he thought. When the session ended, attendance moved in practiced lines. Delegates rose. Some departed quickly, eager to report what they had seen. Others lingered, watching the Velari princess as if she might suddenly explain herself. She did not. Instead, she turned her gaze back to the human section. "Commander Rowe," she said. The human ambassador stiffened. Elias felt every eye turn toward him again. He stepped forward. "Yes, Your Highness. Walk with me." This was not a request either, but it was no longer a demand. There was something uncertain beneath the command. The Velari elders murmured in protest, but Salith did not slow. Elias followed, matching her pace. They moved through a side passage that curved gently away from the hall, its walls glowing with slow, living light. Neither spoke at first. "You were instructed to avoid physical contact," Salith said at last. "Yes," Elias replied. "You chose to violate that instruction." "Yes. Why?" Elias considered the question carefully. "Because it was less dangerous than ignoring what you were asking." She stopped walking. When she turned to face him, her light brightened not sharply but warmly like a sun behind thin clouds. "You understood," she said. It was not a question. "I tried to," Elias said. "I didn't know if I would succeed." "You did more than succeed," Salith said. "You survived a ritual that has ended empires." That made him blink. "I'm sorry." "The embrace of claim," she said. "In our history, it is an act of dominance, of binding. Species have broken themselves trying to withstand it." Others have used it to rule. That's not what I did. I know, she said softly. That is the problem. They resumed walking. Salith led him into a chamber overlooking the planet below. Velar Prime spread out beneath them, vast and luminous, cities woven into the landscape like careful stitches. My people believe strength comes from certainty, she said. From never bending, never doubting, Elias nodded. Humans tried that once, and it didn't go well. She let out a sound that might have been laughter. You hold contradictions easily. We argue with ourselves all the time, Elias said. Sometimes that's how we move forward. Salith folded her hands in front of her, mimicking a human gesture she had observed earlier. When you embraced me, I expected pressure, control. I expected to be overwhelmed. But you were. No, she said. I felt space. You did not take anything from me. You did not give anything to me either. I just stayed, Elias said. That is not just anything, Salith replied. For a long moment they stood in silence, looking down at the world. You should know, she said, that my demand will not be forgiven easily. I figured, Elias said. The elders believe I have weakened our position. And do you think you have? She did not answer right away. I think, she said slowly, that I have revealed how fragile it already was. That night word spread. Not through official channels, but through whispers, recordings, slowed-down replays of the embrace analyzed frame by frame. Other species noticed the lack of dominance, the absence of ritual completion markers, the way the human stepped back first. Something about it unsettled them. Requests began arriving, carefully worded messages asking for human observers, human consultants, human presence during sensitive negotiations. The human delegation was overwhelmed within hours. Elias was summoned again, this time to a private human meeting room. The ambassador looked tired, but there was a strange light in her eyes. You realize what you've done, she said. I hugged an alien princess, Elias said. I was there. You redefined us, she replied. They don't see us as unpredictable anymore. They see us as stabilizing, Elias frowned. That's dangerous. Yes, the ambassador said, but so is everything else. Meanwhile, in Velari territory, the reaction was stronger. The elders convened an emergency council. Ancient protocols were cited. Emotional display laws were reviewed. Salith was accused of recklessness, of personal weakness, of risking Velari superiority. She listened without interrupting. When they finished, she stood. You taught us that certainty was strength, she said. But certainty has made us brittle. We cannot bend, so we crack. This is heresy, one elder said. No, Salith replied. This is survival. She requested another audience with the human commander. This time it was private. They met in a smaller chamber without observers, without recording devices. I should not ask this, Salith said. Elias remained standing, respectful. Then don't, she almost smiled. What are humans, really? She asked. Not what your reports say, not your histories. What are you? Elias thought of Earth, of crowded cities and quiet fields, of arguments and apologies, of holding someone while knowing nothing could be fixed. We're unfinished, he said. We know that. Maybe that's why we don't panic when things don't fit. Salith absorbed that in silence. My people believe perfection is stability, she said, but perfection does not leave room for others. Elias met her gaze. Room is kind of our thing. She took a careful step closer, not touching, just nearer. When I demanded the embrace, she said, I believed I was proving dominance. Instead, I learned how to stand without it. That's not something most rulers figure out, Elias said. I may not remain a ruler, she replied. The thought hung between them. Later, when Elias returned to his quarters, he finally allowed himself to sit. The exhaustion hit all at once. Emotional weight, delayed fear, the slow realization of how close everything had been to disaster. And yet, he felt calm. Across the Concord, something had started moving. Slowly, carefully, like plates shifting deep beneath the surface, not toward war, not toward conquest, toward something far more dangerous. Change. And at the center of it stood a species that did not conquer the moment, did not dominate the ritual, did not claim power when offered. They simply stayed. The change did not arrive loudly. It arrived in small requests, quiet pauses, and moments where beings who once spoke in certainty now hesitated. Commander Elias Rowe became very busy. He was invited to sit in meetings where he was not expected to speak. Sometimes he was only asked to be present. Other times, delegates asked him simple questions that carried heavy weight. How do humans decide when no option is correct? He did not offer wisdom like a teacher. He spoke like a human who had lived through mistakes. "We talk," he said often. "We argue, we feel uncomfortable, and sometimes we choose anyway, knowing we might be wrong." That answer confused many species. Choosing while uncertain sounded reckless to them, yet it was exactly what they were watching humanity do again and again. Princess Salith watched all of this from a careful distance. She had expected resistance from the conquered. She had not expected curiosity. Veleri citizens began asking questions through private channels. Not openly, not yet, but the tone was different. Less obedient, more thoughtful. Had she felt afraid during the embrace? Why had the human not asserted control? Why did the memory of the moment feel calming? The elders noticed the shift and did not like it. Salith was summoned again, this time to the highest council chamber on Velar Prime. The walls there were older than cities, etched with the names of rulers who had never doubted themselves. "You are destabilizing our people," one elder said. "They were already unstable," Salith replied calmly. "You exposed weakness." "I exposed fear," she said, "and fear grows stronger when ignored." The elders argued that the embrace had broken sacred meaning, that it had diluted Velari superiority, that humans had influenced her judgment. Salith listened, then spoke a truth that surprised even herself. "The human did not change me," she said. "He reminded me that I was already changing." Silence followed. That silence was not agreement. Elias, meanwhile, began to understand the cost of being useful. Humans were being requested for mediation across multiple systems, not because they were neutral, but because they were emotionally readable. Species that struggled with internal tension found something grounding in human presence. The human government was careful. They limited numbers. They refused exclusive contracts. They insisted humans were not solutions, only participants. Still, the reputation grew. "They sit with problems." "I am being asked to step aside," she said without greeting. Elias absorbed the words. "Do you want to?" "No," she said, "but wanting is not enough." She walked to the wide viewing window, looking down at Velar Prime's endless lights. "My people do not know how to hold uncertainty," she said. "They need me to be flawless, untouched." "And you're not," Elias said gently. "No," she agreed. "I embraced a human and did not break." That made him smile a little. "High bar," she turned toward him. "When you held me, I felt something new, not surrender, not victory, shared weight." Elias nodded. "That's how we survive things." Salith hesitated, then asked something dangerous. "Does it ever stop hurting?" Elias did not answer right away. "No," he said finally. "But it gets easier to carry when you don't carry it alone." She closed her eyes, letting that sink in. Elsewhere, tensions grew. Some species accused humans of emotional manipulation. Others feared dependence. A few argued that humans were quietly reshaping galactic power through softness rather than force. None of them were entirely wrong. The difference was that humans did not control the outcome. They accepted being changed as well. Elias felt it in himself. He was more careful with words now, more aware of pauses. He felt the weight of being watched. He also felt something else. Hope. Salith made her decision publicly. She stood before the Velari Council and spoke without ornament. "I will not rule as I was taught," she said. "If that costs me the throne, so be it," gasps echoed through the chamber. "I propose a shared council," she continued. "Voices chosen for wisdom, not certainty. Tradition will remain, but it will bend." An elder shouted that this would fracture their people. Salith answered calmly, "They are already fractured. I am offering them a way to heal." The vote was close, painfully close. Salith lost her absolute authority. She did not lose her influence. Across the conquered, the news spread fast. A princess had chosen reform over control. Humans had not demanded anything in return. Elias watched the announcement from a quiet room, surrounded by screens and silence. "You okay?" the ambassador asked him. "I think so," he said. "I just didn't expect it to matter this much." She nodded. Neither did anyone else. Salith and Elias met one last time before he was scheduled to leave Velar Prime. This time, the meeting place was open air, a garden grown for reflection rather than ceremony. "I am no longer certain of my future," Salith said. "Welcome to the club," Elias replied. She studied him carefully. "Would you embrace me again?" He paused, not because he feared the act, but because he understood the meaning. "This time," she added, "I am asking." Elias stepped forward. The embrace was lighter, shorter, no audience, no ritual. Just two beings sharing a moment of balance. When they stepped apart, Salith looked steady. "Thank you," she said. "For what?" Elias asked. For showing me that strength does not have to be loud. As his ship departed Velar space, Elias looked out at the stars. Humanity had not conquered anything. They had not demanded change. They had simply shown the galaxy how to stand together without pretending everything was fine. The galaxy reacted slowly, and then all at once. For a time, it seemed like nothing dramatic had changed. Trade continued, ships traveled, councils argued as they always had. But beneath the surface, old patterns no longer fit as well as they once had. Princess Salith was no longer addressed as sole authority. The new Velari Council met in open chambers, their discussions recorded and shared with the population. It was uncomfortable. Mistakes were visible now. Disagreements were no longer hidden behind perfect unity. And yet something unexpected happened. The people did not panic. They argued, yes, they worried, but they also began to participate. Citizens sent messages, questions, and ideas. Many of them mentioned the same moment again and again, the embrace, not as a symbol of weakness, but as proof that change did not mean collapse. Salith attended every council session, not above the others, but among them. She spoke less than before. She listened more. Some elders resented this. Others quietly followed her example. Commander Elias Rowe returned to human space, but he did not return to a quiet life. Requests followed him, not commands, not demands, invitations. A water-based species asked for human presence during talks about migration rights. A machine intelligence collective requested a human observer during its internal restructuring. A long-isolated culture reached out, asking only that someone who understands discomfort attend their first open forum. Elias was assigned where possible, rotated carefully to avoid creating dependence. Still, the effect was visible. Humans did not solve problems. They changed how problems were faced. They asked questions that had no clear answers. They admitted confusion. They disagreed politely and stayed in the room. Other species began trying this themselves. Not everyone approved. A coalition of older powers accused humanity of emotional interference. They claimed humans were destabilizing long-standing hierarchies by encouraging doubt. At a major Concord session, a delegate finally said it aloud. "You weaken certainty," the delegate accused, voice sharp. "You make leadership hesitate," the human ambassador responded calmly. "Yes, sometimes hesitation prevents disaster." The debate spread across networks, articles, broadcasts, quiet conversations. Is certainty strength, or is adaptability survival? Salith followed these discussions closely. She no longer spoke for the Velari alone, but her words still carried weight. In one recorded address, she said, "We believed strength meant never bending, but the universe bends constantly. Stars bend space. Time bends around gravity. Why should we be the only ones who refuse?" That message traveled far. Elias felt the pressure grow. He was no longer just a person. He was a reference point. People compared their experiences to him. Like the human did, the way the human waited, the pause before the embrace. It made him uneasy. One night, alone in his quarters, he recorded a private message meant only for the archives. "I am not special," he said into the recorder. "I did not plan this. I reacted the way many humans would have. If you are listening to this later, please remember that." He did not know who would hear it or when. Salith faced her own challenges. Some Velari elders resigned. Others stayed but resisted quietly. Progress was slow and mistakes were made. A resource decision caused shortages. A communication failure led to confusion. Critics were quick to blame reform. Salith stood before the council again, shoulders straight, glow steady. "We are learning in the open," she said. "That is painful, but hiding pain did not save us." There were moments when she doubted herself. Moments late at night when the old certainty called to her, promising control, promising ease. In those moments, she remembered the human embrace. Not the contact, but the feeling of space, of being allowed to exist without performing strength. That memory kept her steady. Eventually, she requested Elias' presence again, not for a ceremony, not for mediation, for counsel. They met via long-distance projection, the space between them filled with stars. "You look tired," Elias said. "So do you," Salith replied. They shared a small, understanding silence. "The council is fracturing," she said, "not breaking, but stretching." "That's how growth feels," Elias said. She tilted her head. "You speak as if you are certain," he smiled faintly. "I'm not, I just know it's familiar." Salith studied him. "Do humans ever regret changing things?" "All the time," Elias said. We also regret not changing them. That answer stayed with her. The Conquered reached a turning point months later. A proposal was brought forward to redefine leadership protocols across member species, not to force change but to allow flexibility, shared authority, cultural adaptation. The vote would decide the future direction of the galaxy. Opposition was fierce. Support was quiet but widespread. Humans did not campaign, they did not lobby aggressively, they simply answered questions when asked. On the day of the vote, the hall was full again. Salith attended as one voice among many. Elias sat with the human delegation, heart steady, hands still. The proposal passed, not by much. Enough. There was no celebration, no dramatic announcement. Just a shared understanding that the galaxy had chosen uncertainty over stagnation. Afterward, as delegates dispersed, Salith approached Elias one final time. "The galaxy will change because of this," she said. "It was already changing," Elias replied. "We just stopped pretending it was." She considered him carefully. "You never tried to lead." "I don't think leadership works if you try too hard," he said. She nodded slowly. "I will return to Velar Prime," she said. "There is much work to do." "And I'll keep answering uncomfortable questions," Elias said. They shared a quiet moment, separated by distance but connected by memory. As Salith turned away, she paused. "In my language," she said, "there is now a new phrase." Elias raised an eyebrow. "Oh." "When balance is needed," she said, "we say, stand as the human stood." He felt a tightness in his chest at that. "I hope," he said softly, "they remember it wasn't about me." Salith's glow softened. "They will, because you showed us it could be anyone." As humanity's ships continued their quiet work among the stars, no banners were raised, no victories claimed. But everywhere, in council rooms and private conversations, beings paused a little longer before speaking. They listened a little more. They learned that strength did not always come from standing above others. Sometimes it came from standing beside them. The future did not arrive with certainty. It arrived with questions. Years passed, measured not by wars or borders, but by conversations that once would never have happened. Councils across the Conquered no longer opened with declarations of power. They opened with statements of purpose. Sometimes they even opened with silence. Humanity became something unexpected. Not leaders, not rulers, a reference. When a negotiation stalled, someone would suggest inviting a human observer. When an old tradition caused harm, someone would ask how humans handled letting go. When fear rose too quickly, someone would remember to pause. Commander Elias Rowe did not remain a commander forever. He resigned his commission quietly, returning to civilian advisory work. He insisted on rotating responsibilities, training others, stepping back whenever attention lingered too long on him. He refused titles. "I don't want to become a symbol," he said more than once, "but symbols are not chosen. They are remembered." Princess Salith remained on the Velari Council, no longer at its center but never at its edge. Her people struggled, argued, failed, and adapted. Some traditions were preserved. Others faded naturally. None were destroyed by force. The Velari became known as a people in transition, and surprisingly, others admired them for it. Salith aged differently than Elias. Time touched her gently, but it touched her all the same. She often thought of the first embrace, not as a turning point of power, but as the first time she had been allowed to be uncertain without shame. When Elias visited Velar Prime again, it was without ceremony. No guards, no audience. Just a garden grown wider than before, open to the sky. "You came," Salith said, standing among the light-grown trees. "You asked," Elias replied. They walked together slowly. "I wanted to thank you," she said. "You've done that already." "No," she said, "not for what you did." "For what you never tried to do," Elias smiled faintly. "Take credit?" "Yes." They shared a quiet laugh. The Conquered faced its greatest test not long after. A region of space long considered uninhabitable began to show signs of life, fragile, young. Entirely unprepared for galactic awareness. The debate was immediate and intense. Observe only, protect. Intervene, leave them alone. Old instincts returned, fear of mistakes, fear of responsibility. Humans were asked to give an opinion. Elias spoke carefully. "We don't know what the right answer is," he said, "but we know what happens when we decide without listening." Salith supported him. "So we listen first," she said, "even if it means waiting." The Conquered chose patience. It was not easy, it was not comfortable. But it was deliberate, and it worked. The young civilization grew without interference, unaware of how close it had come to being shaped by others' certainty. In time, the phrase spread beyond Velari space. When words fail, find a human. Humans themselves felt uneasy about it. They reminded others that they were flawed, that they argued, that they failed often. The galaxy listened and continued asking anyway. Elias grew older. His hair grayed. His steps slowed. He spent more time teaching than traveling. He trained others to do what he had done instinctively. Don't try to fix, he told them, just stay. Salith visited him once more near the end of his life. They sat together watching a quiet sky. I will outlive you, she said softly. I know, Elias replied. I wanted to say, she continued, that my people no longer fear uncertainty. That's a big change, he said. We still dislike it, she added. He smiled. That's normal. There was a pause. Would you embrace me? She asked. This time there was no history hanging on the moment, no galaxy watching, just two old friends. Elias stood with effort and opened his arms. They embraced briefly, gently. When they stepped apart, Salith's glow was steady and calm. Goodbye, human, she said. Goodbye, princess, he replied. Elias' row passed quietly months later. There were no monuments, no statues, but in council chambers across the Concord, someone suggested a moment of silence. And for the first time, the galaxy understood what silence could mean. Years later, when new species joined the Concord, they were taught many things. Languages, protocols, histories, and one simple story. A princess once demanded an embrace. A human did not demand anything back. And the galaxy learned how to stand together without pretending it was unbreakable. Humanity never ruled the stars. They helped them listen.